So tonight we'll be having a discussion about ranked choice voting with the Executive Director of the Board of Elections, Monica Evans. It's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening. And first of all, just thank you for inviting me. It's very important for us to get the word out about ranked choice voting because it is coming to DC and it is our job to implement it. So again, thank you. And my colleague Yo-Yo is running the slide deck for me. Thank you, Yo-Yo, for agreeing to do that. Next slide, please. So, why are we here? So, in the November 2024 general election, voters overwhelmingly voted for initiative measure number 83. And that initiative established ranked choice voting as a voting method in DC. The DC Council decided to fund it in the FY 2026 budget. And so now it is our job to implement it, and we will be implementing it for the primary and special elections in June. Next slide. And essentially, ranked choice voting in the District of Columbia is one of the broadest rollouts of ranked choice voting in the country. Ranked choice voting will be used for all primary, general, and special elections, and essentially for every office with the exception of political party offices. And these are the offices that are subject to ranked choice voting. And it is essentially for any contest with 3 or more candidates. Next slide. So, as I mentioned, DC does have one of the more aggressive rollouts, and there are many models of ranked choice voting. And so, if you go to YouTube, if you try to do your own research, we just ask that you please be mindful and you are looking at the rules that apply to the District of Columbia. And so, the model that we are using is not a model that was selected by DC Board of Elections. This is based on the text of I-83, which is the legislation that is now in place. And so we did draft the regulations that align with the legislation, but we are just essentially following what has been given to us. And so, as I mentioned, ranked choice voting will apply to each contest that contains at least 3 qualified ballot access candidates. And voters can rank candidates in order of their preference instead of just choosing one. And essentially, ballots are counted in rounds until a candidate receives a majority of votes or crosses the 50% threshold in that contest. Next slide. So this would just give you kind of a sample view of what the ballot will look like with some fictional candidates. And so the instructions are essentially fill in only one oval per column, rank up to 5 candidates, and ranking additional candidates will not harm your first choice. And you are not required to rank all 5 candidates. You can actually just select one candidate as you always have. And but ranking additional candidates will in no way hurt your first choice candidate. What it will do, it will give you a voice in subsequent rounds of tabulation in the event your first choice candidate is eliminated from the ballot and from tabulation. Next slide. And so this is just briefly showing you the proper way to rank your ballot. So mistakes to avoid. And so here, the one thing you do not want to do is give a candidate multiple rankings. If you do so, it will not hurt that first choice ranking. So in this instance, Donald Duck was given the first choice ranking. So during that first round of tabulation, that is absolutely a valid vote and it will be counted. It is only if Donald Duck is eliminated from the ballot due to having the fewest number of votes that you would move to a second round. And because Donald Duck has been eliminated and we have Donald Duck again, this would be an overvote. And so at the second choice, this particular ballot would become invalid for this contest. It will not invalidate the entire ballot, but just for this contest for future rounds of tabulation. So again, during the first round, Donald Duck is a valid vote, but for subsequent rounds, um, this voter would not have an active vote. Next slide. So here, another mistake to avoid. Here we have Donald Duck and Chuck Brown both receiving the second choice ranking. So again, Beyonce is the first choice. And so as long as we are in the first round of tabulation and Beyonce remains on the ballot, this ballot counts. Beyonce's vote is counted for this particular voter. It is only if Beyonce is removed from the ballot through a round of elimination that we would go to the second choice. Here, there is an overvote in the second choice. So at the point of the overvote, this particular contest will become inactive. And so again, the vote for Beyonce would count as long as Beyonce remains on the ballot. That vote for this voter will remain with Beyonce. It's just if Beyonce is eliminated and there's a subsequent round that this particular contest will become inactive. Next slide. So here you can see the voter skipped a ranking. So they have Beyonce for number one. They did not vote for anyone for number two. And then you have Donald Duck, number three, and Chuck Brown, number four. We ask you to avoid this mistake, but this is not a fatal mistake. Essentially, if you skip one, this would be the equivalent of voting for Beyonce one, Donald Duck two, and Chuck Brown three. If you only skip one ranking, then everything moves up. And so this would be the equivalent of selecting someone in rounds one, two, and three. But then this particular voter would not have a vote in the event you go to a fourth or fifth round of tabulation. Next. So here, the voter has skipped two sequential rankings. Now, this would be considered a fatal flaw, if you will. At any point that you skip two rankings in a row, at that point, your ballot becomes inactive at that contest. So here, there's no vote for number one, no vote for number two. And so you have two sequential skipped votes. And so this contest would be inactive for this particular voter. And so no vote would count in this instance. Next slide. So essentially, if no candidate receives over 50%, so 50% of the votes in a particular contest, that's when we move to tabulation rounds. And so one, just to be eligible for ranked choice voting, you need three or more candidates in that particular contest. If there's only one candidate and a write-in, of course, that would not be subject to ranked choice voting, and it will be ranked and voted the way we traditionally have voted in that contest. But once you go to RCV, then a candidate must receive over 50% of the votes. And so it is likely we will have a ballot that will have some contests subject to RCV and some contests that will be voted in the traditional manner. And so if no candidate receives 50% of the votes in a contest, that's when we move to additional rounds of tabulation. And so in each round, the candidate with the fewest votes is removed. And so whoever has the fewest number of votes is removed. And then we go to the votes for the second round for those voters. So if I'm a voter and my candidate is removed, then the tabulation process would look at my second choice candidate. And so again, even though we're ranking up to 5, only one vote is valid at a time because your vote will stay with your first candidate until that candidate is eliminated from the ballot through a round of tabulation. If that candidate is never eliminated through a round of tabulation, your vote will remain with that first, with your first choice. And then again, excuse me, And so you do not have multiple valid votes at any given time. Next slide. So this is just going to briefly give an example of the tabulation process. And so if we have candidate A, B, C, and D, and you can see the number of votes by the color dots here. After this first round of tabulation, no candidate has crossed the 50% threshold. And so what we would do, we would eliminate the candidate with the fewest number of votes. In this instance, it would be candidate C. Candidate C is eliminated, and then those votes are redistributed based on the second choice of those voters. And so here you can see that we're still not at the 50%. And so now candidate D would be eliminated because now candidate D has the fewest number of votes. And so now the votes for candidate D would be redistributed based on the next choice. In this instance, you can see that now through the third round of tabulation, candidate B would be declared the winner. And so in traditional voting in the District of Columbia, candidate A received the greatest number of votes and would have been declared the winner. But now with a 50% threshold requirement, we will do multiple rounds until a candidate crosses that 50% threshold, and then that candidate would be declared the winner. Next slide. So we always like to set the expectation. So one, of course, it will take longer to mark your ballot because you're not just selecting one candidate per contest for those contests that are subject to RCV. You are selecting multiple and ranking. And so one of the things we're asking for voters to come to the vote center or bring even your mail ballot, use that as your vote plan so that you have anticipated how you will vote before you show up to the vote center. And of course, we will also have guidance on RCV at vote centers, so we'll be able to assist voters who want to vote in person. Again, every registered voter will be mailed a ballot, as we've done in the last few years, and there will be additional instructions in that mail ballot about ranked choice voting. And the other thing we know, the results are going to look different. And so we need to make sure we are displaying the results on our website in a way that assures confidence in the process. And so that individuals can clearly see how candidates were eliminated and how those votes were redistributed. And so we are currently working with other jurisdictions and looking at best practices to determine exactly how we will display those results and determine the cadence of those results being released. On election night, we will absolutely release election results as we have, but we will not be able to do final rounds of tabulation until we have all votes in hand. And as you know, with mail ballots, we get a lot of ballots in the mail on election day, either through the U.S. Postal Service or through our mail ballot drop boxes. And so the results you see on election night will essentially be in-person votes after the polls close, and then any mail ballots that have been processed up to that time. However, we still can receive and count mail ballots that we receive up to 10 days after the election, as long as they are postmarked by election day. So any ballot that's postmarked by June 16th can be received and counted as long as we have it by the 26th. Next slide. So we have a very robust education and outreach plan. We have an RCV page on our website. We have a lab at our office. If you want to come and look at the equipment, you want to see what the screens are going to look like when you come to the vote centers, we can walk you through the process. We have informational materials, palm cards, frequently asked questions. We have sample ballots. Had this presentation been in person, I would have provided everyone with a sample ballot so that you could actually practice. And of course, we have multiple in-person and virtual speaking engagements. We are working with an election tabulation simulator tool, which should be live, fingers crossed, by the end of this week. That will be on our website. And just as you saw the exercise in the PowerPoint that showed votes moving to other candidates during subsequent rounds of tabulation, you will be able to see that through an app. And then we have the script for a video, and we're doing filming on that video this week. Of course, we will have a voter guide, and we have informational mailers that we will send out as well. Next slide. So one of the things we know, we have a very high hill ahead of us with educating and getting the word out, because this is very different. And so we know that it's going to take a lot of touch points with residents and voters in the District of Columbia. And so if you belong to other organizations, civic organizations, fraternal organizations, nonprofits, we're happy to come out, happy to bring informational materials. We have FAQs printed out. We have palm cards, and we will gladly share those with individuals who would like to distribute those in their communities or have us come out to speak at an event or a regular meeting that may be scheduled. And I believe that is the last slide.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. Sandy, I see your hand up for 1 second. Judy Chesser had dropped a question in the chat. She wanted to know if Beyonce is first choice and you choose a 2D, 3D, I'm not sure what that means. But if Beyonce does not get eliminated, you keep counting Beyonce as the voter's choice, right? And I think you answered that.
That is correct.
Sandy, your hand's up.
Thank you for Monica. Thank you for coming and or to Zooming with us. I know that this system, as you explained it, has been adopted by similar or exactly the same as a number of jurisdictions. What I want to know is, or it appears to me that when you go to the lowest finisher and eliminate them and count their ballots, you're actually giving the people who voted for the last place finisher more of a say than, say, the people who voted for the second and third place voter. And I was wondering what went into your thoughts to count the last place finisher's votes in the second round rather than, say, the second place finisher.
Thank you for the question, but one thing I will add, it was not my thought process at all. This is what was given to us. This is essentially the method of ranked choice voting, where the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and votes are redistributed based on their second, third, fourth choices. And so the legislation was given to us, and so we're following the legislation.
The legislation includes that
Yes.
requirement.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a couple of questions in the Q&A and some hands raised, but this one came in before. Someone asked, if you are using electronic voting, will the screen tell you whether it's a valid, properly filled out ballot?
The one thing the on-screen will not allow you to do, it will not allow you to overvote.
Right.
So you cannot choose 2 candidates for your number one or 3 candidates for number one. But if you like skipping and some of the other mistakes I mentioned to avoid, it will not restrict you from doing some of those other things. And so it's similar to voting now. And if you've ever gone to our website and looked at election results, you will often see overvotes and undervotes, where voters may vote for too many in a contest or not vote for as many as they're allowed to vote for in a contest. And even with mail ballots we receive, we have no way of correcting those once those ballots have been counted. So we will not have a true method of putting full guardrails on misvoting, if you will. But that's not different than what the process has been in DC.
Right.
Okay. All right, so then we're gonna switch between live and written questions. So we're gonna go live to Shelley Tompkin.
Yeah, thank you. So am I correct that, let's say on the first round, the candidate who gets the majority or the plurality of number one, but of course doesn't make 50%, so that ultimately, as you go down, that a candidate who say the over 50% of the voters wanted a candidate as number two, and that candidate then would have a large number of number twos that would be a majority, and they could win the election. And it could even be where the original number one was right near 50%, but ultimately the candidate that would win would be more people's number two choice.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So Anne, you were up next, but you had typed in a question. Is the question, and you also have your hand raised. Are you going to ask the question instead?
Sure. I'm concerned about how voting works for the at-large position. My understanding, which could easily be incorrect, is that unlike the old days when we get two votes, we'll only get one vote, and then ranking. But if I were ranking people, I might choose differently than if I had two different, if I were allowed two votes for all the candidates and could rank, because I might rank differently that way.
Yes, thank you for that question. And of course, this will be applicable for the general election in November, where with our at-large council members, we have traditionally been able to vote for up to two. And so you are correct. We will now just rank each contest. And with that particular contest for the at-large council members, you will have winners by the last two standing, essentially.
Can I follow up on that? So what happens to, home rule says that one of those seats needs to be a non-Democratic. What happens if the first and the second are two Democrats?
We have, I guess, ways to, it would essentially be last two standing, but it would need to be different parties.
Okay.
And so it would be the last two of differing parties.
Okay. All right. Joel, you have your hand up. Okay. Joel may be trying to come off mute. Dave, you have your hand up. Hello. Okay. I'll take a question from inside the box then. Anonymous participant. Are you there, Joe?
I am. Yeah.
There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. Trouble coming off mute was right. So thanks for that great presentation and clear explanation. I'm wondering about some of the complaints that have come from voters in other jurisdictions, and what kinds of I think you did say this, but whether they were consulted, what kind of problems were at the forefront of your considerations, and what solutions. I suspect you're a very vigorous education and outreach campaign is a part of the answer, but I'm wondering about other problems.
Yes, absolutely. And so one of the things we know, no matter how much we do with voter education and outreach, we are absolutely prepared that people will show up to vote centers and they will look at the ballot and they will not have a clear understanding about what it is. And there will be people who may not have even heard of ranked choice voting when they show up to vote. And so we are going to have RCV specialists at each vote center who are trained to assist voters with the RCV process. We will also have informational materials and flyers at the vote center to walk voters through that. And so that's one thing that we did here. People were surprised when they got the ballot. One of the things that jurisdictions said that we talked to that will help us in DC is the fact that we mail a ballot to each registered voter. And so people absolutely have an opportunity to see what that ballot looks like, even if they plan to vote in person. And so we've had jurisdictions that said they wish they had enough money to mail a sample ballot to all registered voters. And we essentially will do that through our process of mail balloting. And then we also heard confusion with candidates not necessarily giving the proper information. And so the question came up earlier with our at-large being able to vote for at least two. In Arlington County, they had a contest that was similar to that, where they could vote for two. And so that's how voters were used to voting. Unfortunately, candidates were telling voters, go ahead and select two people as number one. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to put ourselves out as the trusted source. And we've also put informational materials in candidate packets so that we're hopeful that they will help in the efforts of making sure the proper information is articulated to voters. So those are some things that we have learned in our conversations with other jurisdictions.
And you mentioned money. Money is not a problem. Because you did
wish
say it.
I could say that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to go to one of the questions in the Q&A box. Someone asks, based on your benchmarking to other states that have experimented with ranked choice voting, what percentage of ballots end up being thrown out due to not using the ranked choice ballot properly, thus disqualifying their ballot?
Actually, I don't have those figures, but we can look at some other jurisdictions have done. Excuse me.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, some other jurisdictions have done after action reports. And so we can, and Deirdre, I can follow up with you and get some of that information to you, just the percentage of ballots that have been deemed invalid based on improperly filling out RCV. Is that?
Okay, perfect. All right, so we have a couple of more questions. But first, Dave, you still have your hand up. Are you able to come off mute? Okay, maybe he's not able yet. So Jackie had a question. With upwards of 10 candidates running, do you have any idea how long it might take to get to a winner?
It's hard to say because we just don't know how, if there's going to be an overwhelming favorite. If people are going to vote based on name recognition, it's hard to say. But even though we may not get to a definitive winner, we'll have the results in. And so we'll be able to run rounds of tabulation. But as always, the election is not certified until Board of Elections certifies the election. And so we don't certify the election until well after 10 days after that election anyway. And so you may see candidates projecting winners and dropping out. You may see AP polls projecting a winner and people, celebrate. We have not certified an election until after we get all of the ballots and until that first board meeting is when it becomes official anyway. So we will be able to release election results just depending on the margins that will determine how much confidence people have in what has been released and the timing of that. There may be instances where you have a candidate who is a landslide candidate, and then we very well could have several contests just given the numbers that we will not know until after that 10th day when we have all of the ballots in hand and we're able to do final rounds of tabulation. But it's hard for us to know at this point what we're going to get. But that is a likely scenario, and that is part of the expectation we will have to set.
And so I'm glad you said that, because I guess the follow up on that, if you have a contest with a lot of folks and you start to do your tabulation, what happens to that when a couple of days later you get in more mail-in ballots? Like, do you start over, or
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so and the jurisdictions do it different ways. And we have not decided exactly how we're going to do rounds of tabulation. In some instances, they say if you do multiple rounds of tabulation before you get all of the ballots in, it sows seeds of distrust, because you might see someone fall off and then they come back on, then somebody else falls off and they come back on. And then, of course, the candidate who remained on the ballot but then is subsequently eliminated, there are certain feelings about and trusting the integrity of the process. And so we're really trying to be really careful about how we display the results and how we do subsequent rounds. We will continue to absolutely update that first round, but we'll just really be very careful, particularly because this is a very polarizing issue. And, no matter how people, feel about ranked choice voting, either pro or con, it's what we're dealing with. And we want to try to alleviate any concerns about the process, even if people have problems with the actual idea of ranked choice voting.
Okay. We have a couple of more questions. One in the box, Dave, I'm gonna get you 1 second. I see. One in the box is, how will BOE deal with the changes by the USPS where the postmark is no longer their receipt?
Yes, so I actually spoke with a representative from the U.S. Postal Service who has been doing presentations around the country. And so I was just at the National Association of State Election Directors Conference, and that one of the individuals who's in leadership there wants to come out to DC and do possibly a town hall just explaining the changes with US Postal Service. One of the things they've said is not a huge difference or departure from what they've always done. The problem is organizations such as voting, some mortgage companies have used postmarks in a way that the US Postal Service has never validated. And so where we rely on a postmark, or I have, when I put a letter in a box and it's before that pickup time, in my mind, I've always thought that that piece of mail will be postmarked that day. Apparently, even though that was my understanding, the US Postal Service has never put that out. And so they have guidance on their website that clarifies when that can happen. Now, with mail ballots, of course, it is an issue because ballots need to be postmarked by election day. So they are advising that there are ways to ensure your ballot is postmarked on that day. So you can always go into a post office and have your ballot hand canceled. And if you do that, then you can ensure that it will have a postmark for that day. And so we are going to include that in our education, but we are reaching out to US Postal Service, and we really want to take them up on that opportunity to do a town hall for the residents and voters in DC, just to explain all of the changes and clarification so that people don't mistrust the process. But we will be absolutely messaging to not hold your ballot until election day, but mail as early as possible.
Dave, you have your hand up?
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Deidre. Monica, I want to thank you so much. Okay, that actually you and I have met before. Okay, at large councilwoman's thing at the Wilson Building, and what I did is I tagged that the demonstration you had when I was at that meeting, and I was kind of wondering, would I be able to share that in meetings?
Share
You
as
know,
far as the tabulation.
the tabulation. What I did is
Yes.
I've got it on my phone now,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
so my guess is, would I be able to share that?
Eventually. We will have it on our website. So we are working with a vendor to help with implementation services with ranked choice voting. And so at the time that we did the town hall with the council, we were using their account for the app.
Mhm.
We now have a proposal to get our own account, and that is what I'm hoping will be available by the end of the week. Once we have our own account, then you can go to our website. We'll have a QR code, and anybody can download that, and that is something that anybody will have access to in DC.
To me, that's very huge. Because, as a matter of fact, I look at it not every day, but I look at it regularly and actually just before we met this meeting. But more, because I've talked about this and all of our members here as well. We've got a population, not only here in Ward 3, and a population, and I've talked about this 4, 5, 6 years ago when this conversation came up at the board in the district. And I as an at-large committee member of the Democratic State Committee, we voted on this. And you're probably aware of that. And more important is that my concern is the population of District of Columbia. Most Americans know how to vote, but we haven't got and we have an international population that votes here in D.C. as well, and so they're always most Americans are not only here but anywhere where ranked choice voting is. The question is, what is this all about? And more important is I want to be that and it's. And it goes on and on. But more important, guys, is that I want to be able to orient from the state committee and our Ward 3 Democratic Committee. I want to be able to take this into our elder communities and our foreign language communities or new residents in the United States to be able to deliver our message. And to say, the demonstration you had there is, but how do we move this? That's the question I have to the voting population. I know you guys, I know what you guys do, but more importantly, okay, we're and what do you recommend is the best way to reach into our communities, to our ward communities and our state committee communities? How do we educate them on the ground?
You broke up a little bit, but I will say a few things that I would say. We have made a lot of materials available, and anybody can come. You can call us, you can ask us, can we come and pick up some palm cards? We come and pick up some FAQs? Can we come and pick up some sample ballots? Absolutely, that's not a problem. And one of the good things with the app that we are developing, the app is available in over 20 languages. And so that will also be a very important tool that we will use in helping people understand. So we're working on the translations. We're also working with those in the disability community. And we have a particular individual we're working with limited sight and who is working with us on best practices as far as audio prompts when people are voting who are visually impaired. So we are making efforts with our disability coordinator, with the disability community to ensure that we are casting a wide net. Of course, as I mentioned early on, this is a huge hill to climb. And so not only are we doing workshops like this, but we're also doing some things that will cover the entire ward, and we're trying to do certain blitzes. So we have something scheduled with Ward 5 where we're going out. We have something scheduled with Ward 7 where we're going out a whole Saturday and just hitting different rec centers and working with churches and community organizations. We're really focusing on seniors and making sure that we are having particular touch points with senior homes, rehabilitation centers. And this is not a huge departure from what we've done. Our voter education and outreach team has always been divided, and we have different people working with different populations, whether it's students, whether it's seniors, whether it's the disability, homeless. And so we are used to making those touch points with different populations in DC. We just know we're just going to have to ramp it up. And we're doing a lot more to ensure we get the word out. And again, culminating with the actual vote centers and continuing the voter education and outreach there. But if you have suggestions, if you are talking to people, we've gone to churches, and after services, we've met with congregations. So there is no audience that's off limits to us, but I'm absolutely open to suggestions. I never say I have all the answers. And so if there's something you think would be very effective, please share it with us.
Susie, you have your hand up.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Monica. I'm Susie. You're gonna be speaking with one of my groups. You are one of your representatives next in about 2 or 3 weeks. Anyway, I'm looking forward. And this is the second time I've seen you on video, so I thank you very much. I have a few questions. Let's see. When are the ballots going to be mailed? If I only like one person out of for a position of which one person out of, let's say, 10 candidates, I only like one. Can I still vote for that one and then just say whatever comes, whatever comes? And the other thing is, let's see, do you have any kits that can be distributed to anybody, like kits that have a sample ballot, blah blah, a little kit that one can pick up instead of picking up separate materials that you have in your office. And the last question is, can you game the system? Can a voter game the system? I don't know if other states have done it, have figured that out.
Yes, I don't know exactly what that means as far as gaming the system. I would say that there probably are some strategies that can be rolled out as far as candidates possibly suggesting how their supporters mark their ballot to maybe give or not give someone else an advantage, but that's not something that we would venture. I would not venture down that road. You could probably employ someone, a statistician or someone who, but I'm sure, and there might be materials out there about being strategic with how you vote. But that's not something that we are educating on.
Well, I understand that. I didn't mean to say that you can offer how to game the system, but have other states that have had RCV, have they seen any strategy that voters have been using or candidates have been using that games the system?
None that have been shared with me. Okay. You asked about kits. So we don't have kits per se, but if you wanted to, get different pieces of information, like we could, give you the FAQs and the palm cards if you want to come to our office and pick them up, but we don't have a kit, if you will. And then you asked about mailing ballots, and we will begin mailing ballots on May 11th.
You start
Okay.
my phone.
And then
We're
my
gonna-
last question was, if I just want one person out of the 12 candidates, I'm still can go in and vote. I mean, mark my ballot for that one person and then just say, and not really care what happens afterwards. Is that a possibility? It still will
It
count.
is. Yes, that first vote will absolutely still count.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everything you've gone, and I know you're pulling your hair out, but you still have it on your head.
Okay, so we are gonna wrap up this moment. I have like 2 or 3 very short questions or statements. One, just to confirm, I did hear you say that the educational information would be in multiple languages. Someone was asking, is your website also in multiple languages?
Some of the information is, we're still working on some translations.
Okay. Someone wants to know if this information will be provided at the public libraries.
Yes.
Okay.
And we have partnerships with public libraries, and we actually have a schedule for presentations at MLK on a regular rotation. But if you go to our website, our voter education outreach events are listed, but we are absolutely partnering with the public libraries.
Okay. And then a question that wasn't answered tonight that I've had folks ask me, and I don't know the answer to it, is you get your ballot at home, you go to start filling out and you make a mistake and you use the ink pen. What can people do?
They can call us and ask for a replacement ballot. So if you make a mistake, you can, and that's the same if you are voting in person and you make a mistake on your ballot at the vote center, you can get a replacement ballot.
Okay. All right. Last question, Jose, and then we're going to close this out because it's 8:30.
Another question, so Enrique, the interactive ballot that you have on the website, it looks like once you hit submit vote, just takes you, just takes you back to the FAQ. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
You have an interactive ballot on the website.
Yes.
Once you fill it out and then hit submit vote, it just takes you back to dcboe.org/RCV. I wonder if that's intentional or if you were intending to.
Yeah, the interactive ballot that's there now does not take you through like the rounds, such as the app will do, where you will be able to see how all of those. That is just giving you practice for how to mark the ballot. So the tool that we're working on now, that we hope to have up by the end of the week, will actually display the tabulation of those votes. So that's the piece that I think will be more helpful. But we wanted to at least get something up so people could become familiar with what they're going to see and how it's going to look. So I'm not sure where exactly it takes you back, but it is not as robust as we would like it to be as far as the interaction, but that is coming.
Okay, thank you. No, I was just wondering if it was intended to show if somebody was put an error, accidentally vote and ranked 2 people for first. It doesn't indicate anything now.
Yes. So yeah, that's really more illustrative right now, but it will be more interactive once we get the app up.
Okay. Sandy, we really have to finish up. Is your question quick?
Yes, it's a quick question. So I was trying to figure out how to game the system, and I was reading the actual the resolution that passed in DC. It says, correct me if I'm wrong, Monica, you only can rank up to 5 candidates. So if there's 10 people running, you only rank 5 candidates.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So Monica, thank you so much for joining us tonight, you and your staff. We greatly appreciate it. If people if I'm going to send out all the links that they put in the chat, I'll send that out probably in the morning, maybe late tonight. But if anyone wants to reach them to come out to their community events or to get more questions, please use those links. They've been very responsive.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
And Deirdre Brown, thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it. And we're always happy to come out or bring you materials, anything to help get the word out. Just please let us know.
All right. Thank you.
You guys have been great. Thank you so much.